There are people who have an entire, very large life inside their head. They know what they want. They know where they should begin. They know what they need to do first. They can even talk about it for hours in so much detail that it sounds like everything has already happened. If you sit beside them long enough, you might think this person is definitely going to do something very big. But then one day passes, then another day passes. Nothing begins. The strange thing is, everything is still very much alive inside their head. The dream is still there. The plan is still there. The feeling of wanting to change their life is still there. Only the action never appears. From the outside, it looks like procrastination, like a lack of discipline, like laziness. But very often, that is not what is really happening. Sometimes it looks like this. A to-do list opens in front of them. The most important task is right at the top. Their eyes stop there for a few seconds. Then their hand scrolls downward, replying to one small email, cleaning up the desktop, reading something that does not need to be read right now, suddenly remembering they have not replied to a message. Then a few more minutes pass, as if their body has quietly decided, do not touch that one. The even stranger thing is, they usually know it is happening. They know they have just gone in circles. They know they have just avoided the very thing they needed to do most. But they keep going, not because they do not care, but sometimes because they care too much. Because the more something matters, the easier it becomes for it to feel frightening. The strange thing is, after all of that, they still feel a little lighter, even though they have not truly done anything. Because there are people who are not addicted to success. They are addicted to the feeling that nothing has been tested yet. In that place, everything is still beautiful. The idea is still intact. The dream has not been touched by real life yet. There, no one has said it is bad. No one has seen the failure. No one can prove they are not good enough. And there, they still do not have to discover how ordinary they might be. It feels a little uncomfortable because there are people who would rather keep imagining that they could do something very big than see the real version of themselves in real life. Because sometimes the scariest thing is not failure. It is the moment imagination begins to touch real life. Because sometimes the scariest thing is not failure. It is the moment imagination begins to touch real life. And then, after many times like that, something very strange begins to happen. They still think about what they want every day. But the more they think about it, the less they actually touch it. Some people want to write a book, but instead of writing, they spend many days looking for a better way to write, learning more, reading more, preparing more. Some people want to start YouTube, but they spend weeks choosing a style, choosing a thumbnail, choosing colors, choosing music, and then by the end of the week, no video has appeared. The funny thing is, at that moment, they still feel like they are moving forward. They still feel like they are not standing still. Until one day, they look back and feel a little uncomfortable because it has been a very long time since they truly touched the thing they wanted. Sometimes it looks like this. The small cursor blinks in the middle of the white screen. One line of text appears. Their eyes stop there for a few seconds. Then each word disappears as if it never existed. Not because it is too bad, only because it does not sound like the version inside their head. The worst part is, they usually know exactly what is happening. They know they are going in circles. They know they are standing very close, then turning away. There are moments that are very hard to explain. You reopen something you were once extremely excited about. You look at it for a few seconds. Then suddenly, you feel tired. Not tired in the way you feel when you lack sleep, but a heaviness somewhere inside your body, the kind that makes you not want to touch it anymore. It sounds a little strange, because there are people who are not afraid of working. They are afraid of the moment the work starts answering a different question. One very quiet question. Am I really as good as I once thought? And the most painful thing is, if they do not begin, they can still believe the answer is yes. There are people who stay in the same position for too long, until they begin calling it a safe place. Because if everything is still inside their head, it can still be perfect. But when it steps out into real life, it begins to have the power to change everything. And that is where many people begin to feel afraid. And very often, that fear does not begin in the present. It usually begins in the place where people learned how to see themselves. There are people who grow up with the feeling that recognition always comes with conditions. The grades have to be good. The results have to look impressive. They have to try harder. They have to be better. No one truly sits them down and says, "You only have value when you do well." But children learn so many things without anyone having to say them out loud. A disappointed look, a very small comparison, one time bringing home the thing they were most proud of, one very quick nod, and then nothing. Some people stand beside an adult, waiting for one sentence. "Well done." Then here, "Try a little harder next time." The strange thing is, many people do not remember the event. They only remember the feeling of having to try a little harder, the feeling of almost being enough, but not quite enough. There are feelings that stay in a very strange way. You do not remember that day. You do not remember how old you were, but you still remember the feeling of standing still for a few seconds after the thing you were so proud of was brushed past so quickly. You still remember the feeling of watching someone else get praised and suddenly feeling your throat become heavy. Not big enough to cry, but enough to go quiet. Then, many years later, it begins to look like ambition, like perfectionism, like someone who is very serious about their future. From the outside, it may even look like a strength, a person who prepares very carefully, a person who always wants everything to be polished, a person who does not want to do things carelessly. But if you look closely enough, you will see something else. One very quiet question: what if I try my absolute best and I am still only ordinary? The uncomfortable thing is, there are people who are not really trying to become excellent. They are trying to avoid a very old feeling, the feeling that if they do not do well enough, they become a little less valuable. And from there, every time they begin, it no longer feels like beginning. It begins to feel like a test. And very few people walk into a test without fearing they will not be good enough. Then, after many years, they prepare a lot, just so they do not have to step in. And then, after many years, they prepare a lot, just so they do not have to step in. What is hard to notice is, at first, that used to help them feel safe. Thinking a little more, preparing a little more, waiting a little longer. It sounds very reasonable. And that is also why it is dangerous. Because the things that hurt us do not always arrive looking frightening. Some things arrive very quietly, very politely, very reasonably. Sometimes it looks like this: an evening spent planning for tomorrow. The schedule is rearranged. The goals are broken down smaller. The timeline is adjusted more clearly. Everything looks very clean, very organized, very much like life is moving in the right direction. Then, a few minutes later, a light feeling appears, as if they have just done something, as if they have just taken one more step, as if tomorrow will finally be different. But then the next morning comes. Everything begins to look like yesterday, then like the day before, then like last week. And the most important thing is still sitting exactly where it was. The strange thing is, they do not see themselves as hiding. They see themselves as trying. And that is the uncomfortable part, because sometimes the way we avoid something does not look like avoidance. It looks like responsibility, like perfectionism, like someone who is very serious about their future. There are moments that feel quite uncomfortable. You look back at the past month and suddenly realize you were very busy, very tired. A lot of things happened. But if someone asks, "So how far has your most important thing actually moved?" your mind suddenly goes quiet for a few seconds. Not because you do not know the answer, but because you know it too clearly. It hurts a little to hear, because there are people who begin to love the feeling of preparation more than the very thing they want to achieve. Because while they are preparing, no one is judging them. There is no failure. No evidence appears. Only possibility. Only the version of themselves that has not been tested yet. And the most frightening thing is, after a long enough time, people begin to mistake the feeling of moving for actually moving forward. Pause here for 1 second, because there are people who have been going in circles for too long, to the point where they begin calling it progress. There are people who look at their life for a very long time, then ask themselves, "I have been busy all this time, so why am I still standing here?" And then one day, they begin to realize the problem was never a lack of ability. It is that they have lived for too long, inside the place that was created to protect them. And then one day, they begin to realize the problem was never a lack of ability. It is that they have lived for too long, inside the place that was created to protect them. The strange thing is, after staying in one place for too long, people begin to think that is who they truly are. I am the kind of person who procrastinates. I am the kind of person who never follows through. I am always like this. Does that sound familiar? Because there are people who have repeated those sentences inside their head for so many years that they no longer sound like thoughts. They begin to sound like the truth. But there is something very few people notice. So many things we call personality are actually just old reactions that have lived for too long. Some people think they are lazy. Some people think they lack willpower. Some people think they are not disciplined enough. But sometimes it is only one part of them trying to avoid a very old feeling, a feeling that once hurt them, a feeling that once made them feel smaller. There are moments that look completely normal. You are sitting in a coffee shop. You see someone your age. You hear them talking about what they are doing. You hear them talk about a new project, about the things they have started. Then suddenly, something very small appears inside you, not big enough to call sadness, not clear enough to call jealousy, just a very strange feeling. A feeling like, where am I right now? And the uncomfortable thing is, many people are not truly sad because someone else is moving forward. They are sad because they remember the version of themselves that once believed so deeply. One day. It hurts a little to hear because there are people who are not afraid of losing the dream. They are afraid of discovering that. They have waited too long. That is the painful part, not the task, not the deadline, but the feeling that they have quietly stepped away from their own life for too long without realizing it. But maybe this is the part many people have never heard. You do not need to prove your worth with one perfect step. You do not need to wait until you are no longer afraid. You also do not need to turn the first day into the day that changes your entire life. Because maybe the thing that has kept you standing still all this time is not the action itself, but the meaning you have placed on that action. Some people look at something they did badly and treat it like evidence in court, as if, you see, you really are not enough. But something done badly is not a sentence. One failure is not the final conclusion about who you are. Maybe the first thing that needs to change is not the plan, but the act of no longer turning every small step into a test of your self-worth. If you have lived with this feeling for too long, leave a dot in the comments. No need to explain anything. Just to remind yourself that you do not want to keep standing at the edge of your own life anymore. You want to step in. Click the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. And be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you for being here. At Cortex Psychology, we explore the hidden patterns behind the way you think, feel, and connect. If this video helped you understand yourself a little more, stay with us. You don't have to decode your mind alone. We'll decode it together. See you in the next one.